Hi everyone, thank you so much for taking this PD on zones of regulation. I'm going to go over some ways that you can utilize this new curriculum for implementing it in your classrooms at LP Brown. So first, a lot of people have heard of the zones of regulation and maybe are not super familiar with what it is. So it is a curriculum that was developed by an occupational therapist to help kids be able to gain some awareness about what their feelings are in their bodies. And so this started being used more in occupational therapy and kind of in the realm of special education. It's used a lot in children's mental health services. So it has a broad use, and now it's starting to be used somewhat in tier 1 at elementary schools to help all students get more familiar with their feelings and how to manage their feelings. So the first step in the curriculum is really that emotional awareness. What do our physical sensations tell us about our emotions and what emotions we're experiencing? So, really, that body awareness and that emotional awareness is the first step of a curriculum. And all of that contributes to the next step, which is managing those emotions. So, in order to manage our feelings, we have to become more aware of them, and then we have to have some tools to help regulate them so that the curriculum helps us teach kids about what those tools can be. So, just briefly to go over the different zones, the zones are categories that we can put all of our feelings in. And the categories are based on the level of energy in your body. So, there's no good or bad zone. They're just based on the level of kind of heightened or decreased energy. So, the first zone is the blue zone. And you'll see here, blue zone includes sick, sad, tired, bored. I had one student include lonely in the blue zone. So these are the feelings that where you have low energy, you're maybe feeling down. I often say you're feeling blue, which is why it's the blue zone. So you're kind of under the weather. The next zone is the green zone. And at this point, I start talking about a stoplight. So these are like happy, calm, feeling okay, feeling relaxed. And I say that the green zone, you're good to go. You're feeling like you can handle it. You feel ready to learn. So kids usually relate the colors to that. And so the next step then is the yellow zone. And the yellow light in a stop sign means to slow down, and most kids can identify that. Or even like road signs, sometimes it will be like use caution, right, on our yellow signs. So this is when our emotions just start to kind of give us more energy in our body. So we might be getting frustrated or feeling like a little worried or uneasy. We might even have some really good feelings, but just more energy right behind them. So, like being silly or wiggly or maybe overly excited. So, it's some loss of control within our body that relates to our feelings starting to kind of bubble up. And so again, I kind of relate this to the stoplight. It's kind of those feelings of being a little wound up. And then the last one is the red zone. So this is, feeling mad or angry. Again, those heightened emotions. So not just being scared, but being terrified, not just being excited, but being elated, not just being sad, but being devastated, right? The intensity of the emotion and also the intensity of the energy in our body increases, so that maybe we're feeling really out of control once we're in the red zone. And of course, red in a stoplight or a sign means stop. And so at this point, we don't just need to slow down. We really need to stop what we're doing and kind of bring online our thinking and use a tool right away. So that's an indicator like, oh, I need to make sure I'm regulating myself. So again, these feelings go from low energy to high energy. So when you're starting to introduce it to your class, a good way to do that is to check out the books. The books give an overall introduction, and they're numbered 1 and 2. So the first book is The Road to Regulation. You see it on the screen there. That goes over the zones and the sensation, the physiological experience of emotions and how that relates to the zones. The second book is called The Regulation Station. Each of these are included in all of the kits. And this one is about the tools to try. And so this can give your class some good ideas about what would be helpful in different zones. So I think starting with the first book is a great idea to go over that emotional awareness piece first. I am planning on doing a recording of these as well for our school so that if the books are not available, since we just have the 4 kits, you can get it online and have me read it to the class in a video form. And that way you can pause it and go through it at whatever pace you'd like. And then another way, especially for some of the older kids, you might, for the older kids, want to just summarize this, and show some of the pictures. Or you might just use the information in it and share it with the class. Zones Bingo is included in the curriculum, and that's a great way to start getting kids to notice, based on like facial clues, what feelings people are having, and then also to be able to put those in the zones where they belong. So how intense is that emotion? How much energy is behind it? What zone do you think they are in from how they look on their face? And so that Zones Bingo game is one of the lessons in the curriculum if you want to pull it from there. If you need help, let me know. And then the next step, really, once you have identified where feelings go in each of the zones, you can add check-in times to your classroom routines. And this is what most teachers who use it universally use it for, is doing these check-ins. It gives a really concrete way for students to be able to identify their energy level and also some of the feelings that they're having. So you can use it as your morning check-in. They could share about why they're in that zone. Or you might just have like a clip chart that you use morning, midday or after recess, and then end of day, how they're feeling checking out. So those would all be great times. Here's an example of how a classroom has done it with sticking their names up for which zone they're on. You might have little clips that you clip up, so you can make a chart that way. But just, again, not even having to identify a specific feeling, but identifying which zone they're in is really helpful to get a sense of what that student can be working on or doing at that moment that's going to be most useful for their emotional state and for or maybe if they need to do something else for a minute to get regulated so that they can learn. Here's another way to do a check-in. They use like a little bead to move. You could put these at their desks or on a wall chart as they come in the door, something like that. And then another way to do it is like a flip book. So students have these on their desk and they can flip it over the side so that you can see on the front of their desk what zone they're in by what color they're at. Again, it's just another way for you to visually be able to check in with them, see how they're doing and what maybe would be helpful for them to do to get to a place where they can learn. And then this is an individual chart. So the next step, after really identifying what feelings go in which zones and then being able to do that self-awareness piece of check-ins, is to come up with ways to regulate. So there are some helpful things that we've been able to purchase for the school. The first one are these tools to try cards. So they're just that. They're cards that have a strategy, the picture on the front, and it gives a description on the back or a step-by-step kind of process. And they're all different kinds of things. So some of them are things that you can feel, ways that you can move, things that you can think, actions you can take, or ways to connect with other people that can help you be regulated. So one way to do this might be to, make a copy of a few of the cards so that you have it for the week and then use those as brain breaks and try them out. each of you will get a classroom poster for your classroom to have. It's a dry erase poster, and so you can create it as a class. Which tools would be helpful and are appropriate in your classroom for each of the different zones. So, for example, a tool for the blue zone might not be the most appropriate thing for the red zone, right? You're going to have different needs when you're feeling in different zones. So they have here blue zone, a good thing to do might be to stretch your body and like really wake yourself up. So there are some options in here where you can practice that. I would say do some things together, right? Try some of them out, have a conversation. When would this be helpful? And then write it up on your poster together and really clearly define when and how that tool should be used to be used appropriately in the classroom. So there should be a few options in each one of them, and your students hopefully will have tried them out with you. And that way, when the time comes when they are in one of those zones, you can easily help them identify that and then point to the poster for some ideas. And it's not new information at that point. It's a prompt to remember to do what we were planning to do, which is one of the tools. So trying them out ahead of time, deciding as a class, and having lots of good ideas that they themselves identify as wanting to use when they're in those zones will be helpful to you. Here's an example of an individual tools menu. So some students may need even more prompting or more coaching or a more individualized plan. And so if that's the case, this is part of the curriculum as well, and you could print it out. The tools that you see here are ones that are in the curriculum. And those are printable, or you could, make smaller copies of the cards and stick them on there. That's something that, our behavior tech and I, or SPED teacher and I, we can help with some of these as well if a student needs an individualized tool sheet. Okay, so for the next couple of slides, I want you to think about what this is saying. What are the pictures communicating? These are posters that were in a school, and it was a room that was meant to help students be regulated. So the poster says, what do I need to self-regulate? And here's a picture of all the different tools that they have. So just giving you a minute to take it in. All of the arrows point back to green. So here the question comes up, what are the mental health impacts of this narrative that says we always need to be in the green zone? And of course, the green zone is the zone that's most conducive to learning. But we also know that the impacts that some of our students have in their lives, whether that be in school or outside of school, lead to dysregulation, lead to, feeling on edge and having some real reasons why they feel dysregulated or why they have a hard time being in the green zone. And so just taking that into consideration, we can think about just the language that we use. So of course, we want to do things to regulate our emotions no matter what zone we're in, but without making assumptions that every student's baseline is green right now. If they are going through some kind of intensive or traumatic stress, green might not be their baseline to return to at this particular point in time. So just being mindful that we are kind of thinking about our language here. And so what the creators of this curriculum have shifted to and have encouraged people using the curriculum to change to is language that says, instead of how do we get back to green, we say, let's use a tool to take care of ourselves in this zone. Or I wonder what might help us manage this feeling right now or this zone right now. So really kind of thinking about our language, and there's some other helpful ideas on here, but making a point to emphasize that, all zones are okay. And if we can't change zones right now, it's okay, but we can help ourselves to regulate within and manage and take care of our feelings within that zone. I think the idea is that we're not like setting a timer and like you have 5 minutes to get back to green, right? It's like that is not the point of like trying to control students' emotions and how they're managing those emotions, but to really help them learn tools to be able to manage that emotion and cope with that feeling. So then after you're able to do those check-ins, that emotional awareness, giving the kids chances to explore the tools and create some options at tier 1 as a classroom, you know, maybe prompting more emotional awareness. So maybe there's a conflict, checking in like what zone are we each in right now and how is that affecting things? Providing space to use the tools. So, broadening what tools are options is always great. Processing intense events. So I said maybe conflict, but even if there's something that happened that affected the whole classroom or the whole school community, being able to process some of that and check in about what zone you were in when it happened and what tools did you use to help yourself or what can you do for yourself now? And building empathy. Can they identify what zone somebody else is in? Whether that be in real time with a peer or in a story. What zone do you think this character was in when all this was happening? Did you notice any tools? So bringing the social emotional pieces, the language from that into some of your other work and parts of the day. And then the other lessons that I would recommend from the curriculum are listed here. There's a great zones across the day that I use individually with students, but you could do it as a classroom lesson. Just where are you throughout the day, building that self-awareness. There's a tools tracker that you could give them as you're starting to try some of them out. How are these working for you individually? They can keep track of it themselves. I used this then, and did it help or not? Just being able to kind of keep a log of what they've tried. There's the size of the problem. This is a great lesson for students. Inner coach is that positive self-talk stuff. And then stop, opt, and go is the language that they use for being able to really stop and think through a decision before acting. So it's kind of that decision-making piece with the curriculum. Here are some more tools. You can access this in the slideshow. These are, this list was put together from Kristen Aurelius, our SEL specialist at the district. And there's also a Schoology page or a course for other district resources in this area. So when you're finished with this video or looking through the presentation, please share in the discussion under each of these prompts. We look forward to hearing from you and getting back to you about your other needs. Thank you so much.